Proceedings are resumed. Recognized honorable member from fifth elected member from the District of Georgetown.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to serve a notice of amendment to private members motion number 24 of 2015-2016. And I won't go through all of the amendments by your leave, Madam Speaker, but I will highlight the changes that were made. In accordance, this motion is entitled "A Motion to Establish a National Energy Policy and Sustainable Development Goals and to Reduce Reliance on Fossil Fuel." In accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 25-1, I, the fifth elected member for Georgetown, seek leave in accordance with Standing Order 25-2 to move the following amendment to the private member's motion number 24, 2015-2016 as follows. To amend the first whereas section, which read as follows. Whereas there is no fixed or accepted national energy policy or plan in the Cayman Islands, the whereas section will now read, whereas there is no promulgated national energy policy or plan in the Cayman Islands. To amend the first resolve section, which read as follows, and I've changed number 5 and number 6, Madam Speaker. So I'll go straight to number 5 with your leave. And number 5 said, aiming for 20% of all registered vehicles on the Cayman roads to be electric vehicles or hybrids by 2020, reduce the import duty on A, electric motor vehicles from 15% to 5%, and B, hybrid motor vehicles to 7.5% for an initial period of 2 years, and thereafter consider the impact of such reductions and make adjustments up or down as per government policy and stated goals. Madam Speaker, that has been changed to D on the following page. As part of a carbon emission reduction goal, aiming for 20% of all registered vehicles on the Cayman roads to be electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles or hybrids by 2020, and to provide the necessary incentives to facilitate this goal and further reduce the import duty on each. And number 6 was also changed. The original number 6 read, ensuring that appropriate solar power systems are provided to Caymanian households earning less than $15,000 per annum to subsidize energy costs. The amendment is E, ensuring appropriate solar power systems are provided to Caymanian households whose combined income falls below the poverty level identified in the minimum wage law and all government-built homes by way of subsidy. Madam Speaker, also amended was the be it therefore resolved number 2, and it basically what it reads for now, I'll read from the top, is be it therefore resolved that government considers as a matter of urgency, 1, the introduction and passage into law of the National Energy Policy, which sets in place relevant Millennium Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goals, and the climate change goals of the 2015 Paris Climate Conference within 6 months. And this is where the change is, Madam Speaker. And 2, in framing the objectives of the National Energy Policy, the committee should consider the following non-exhaustive suggestions. And I've already read in the original motion the suggestions. Madam Speaker, with your indulgence, then I'll just go straight into my...
Is there a seconder to the
sorry.
amendment?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to second the amended motion.
The amendment has been duly moved. Does the honorable fifth elected member wish to speak to the amendment?
I do, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Madam Speaker, I made those changes after speaking with the Minister of Planning because I did recognize that, you know, trying to impose the duty percentage and other numbers, including the poverty line, I would leave that to the government to use the appropriate legislation, and also after doing the relevant kind of analysis to come up with something in the review. And the review will, the minister has said to me, will be done by the Energy Policy Review Committee, and they will consider those things in any event. So that's why those changes were made. And I recommend that the members of the House accept them, Madam Speaker, as amended.
Does any other member wish to speak to the amendment? Does any other member wish to speak to the amendment? Final call. Does any other member wish to speak to the amendment? If not, I'll call on the fifth elected member from Georgetown if he wishes to wind up on the amendment.
Madam Speaker, I just rise to thank the members for their tacit support on the amendment.
The question is that the amendment as put forward by the honorable member be approved and accepted. All those in favor, please say aye. Those against, no. The ayes have it. Accordingly, the amendment has been approved. I recognize the honorable fifth elected member from Georgetown if he wishes to speak to the amended motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I do. Madam Speaker, this motion is about setting plans, Madam Speaker. As most people know, I'm a stickler for a plan. It's also a motion for the people of the Cayman Islands, Madam Speaker. And when the member from Bordentown, the fourth elected member from Bordentown, agreed to second this motion, he and I embarked on canvassing the people of the Cayman Islands by way of social media and other outlets. And Madam Speaker, the response was overwhelming. To date, we had some 15,215 people review the call for action, and some 377 liked the motion, and another 345 shared the motion, and also there were multiple likes on those shares. Madam Speaker, I also did a video on social media. There were some 12,311 interactions. Madam Speaker, this screams volumes in a small island like this. It means people are interested. It means that they want some energy security. They want lower costs. And they agree with the motion, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, I promised those people that I would attempt to table these yeses in the House, just to show the level of support. And I crave your indulgence to ladies on the table of the House.
So ordered. Sarge is a pink piece of paper stuck in it, and I'm not sure whether he wishes to table that as well.
Sorry. That's just the efficiency of the staff of the Legislative Assembly, demarcating the two two items that I'm passing. And if any member wants to see the totals, I have copies for everyone here as well, Madam Speaker. Not of all the yeses, because that would just, go against what we're trying to do here: sustainable development, renewable energy, and all the rest of that. But just so people can see, yeah, absolutely. But Madam Speaker, I'd like to also acknowledge, the members of the public that have taken the time out to come to this debate at this late hour, and some of them have been there since about 4:30. Some of them came last week, Madam Speaker, when we were first originally supposed to debate this motion. So I thank the members of the public that have taken the time to come out. They're not the only people, Madam Speaker, that have come forward to either the fourth elected member from Bordentown or myself over the last few weeks. And I must say that the support has been overwhelming. We've also had people reaching out to us from as far away as Europe and California, Madam Speaker. So the world is watching. Madam Speaker, as we try to move in this age of social media and to move this national energy policy forward, I'd just like to take some time to reflect on some of the priorities that I, as an independent, along with some of the other members in this House, promised. And in bringing this motion, Madam Speaker, I'd like to think I'm keeping my promise in the priorities planned that the independent circulated. And one of the goals there was to ensure planned and managed growth and development, which is in harmony with our natural environment, society, and economy. Sustainable development secures economic growth while ensuring equitable social development and a healthy environment for our people. Growth and development has to provide tangible and sustainable benefits to the country and, more importantly, to our people. Natural resources should be protected and managed responsibly to ensure that future generations inherit a healthy and viable environment. Sustainable development ensures that decisions taken achieve environmental, social, as well as economic outcomes through integrated, participatory, and transparent approaches to decision making. Madam Speaker, we also talked about energy security and long-term infrastructural development. What I'm trying to present here today, Madam Speaker, is that renewable energy is viable, reliable, and best of all, affordable. Some opponents will say that renewable energy is too expensive. I say that it's the most economic solution for new grid connected capacity where good resources are available. Madam Speaker, if we look at just labeling renewable energy for the rich and not for the poor, we're not taking into consideration the hidden cost of fossil fuel power, including water pollution, health impacts, climate change. As you can see, Madam Speaker, my motion was quite comprehensive when we were talking about climate change, sustainable development goals, Millennium Development Goals, and also the climate change goals that came out of the 2015 Paris Climate Conference. Madam Speaker, we have to look all of the pros and cons and the benefits of solar versus diesel. And we also need to look at other alternatives, including wind, geothermal, SWAC, and other things that will benefit us and generations to come, Madam Speaker. There's also a myth that renewable energy can't supply electricity 24/7. Not only can it do that, but it can meet all of our energy needs in a safe and reliable way. Madam Speaker, the question that we have to answer in the Cayman Islands is actually about grid management and smart integration. The key is to have a mix of sources spread over a wide area. We need to look at things like solar, wind, biogas, geothermal. And we can also look to the ocean. Madam Speaker, the technology is here. The utility company has to keep up with the technology. We hear that we need to have studies to show that electricity grid can handle renewable energy. I've been reliably informed by the experts, Madam Speaker, that if designed to do so, it can handle large shares of variable renewable energy. Madam Speaker, we only have to look in the headlines to see what the rest of the world is doing, both from a positive perspective and a not so positive perspective. Because we see the struggle between renewables and utilities worldwide. We also see that the first adopters are now making great strides in lowering costs, reducing their carbon emission, and really setting up well for the future. Madam Speaker, I also spoke about the Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals. And I actually won't go through all of them. But it's something that, as I studied more and more about renewables and the importance of having access to clean, affordable, and reliable energy, these Millennium Goals and Sustainable Development Goals are worthy to look at and to see which ones apply to us. And like I said earlier, the minister has said that we will be looking at these things in their totality on the National Energy Policy Committee, so I won't be further dilating in them. But these are words that the listening audience should look up because it's important, Madam Speaker. We in the Cayman Islands should be especially concerned about the potential impacts of extreme weather conditions, increase in sea levels, destruction of our ecosystems and habitats, because these are all things that result from climate change. And some people believe climate change is a myth. I pity those people, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, because of what we do here, our product here, I say again that we should definitely be worried about things like sea level rise and coral bleaching, because it makes up pretty much half of our GDP. Madam Speaker, there are also those people that say that we're too small to make a dent in the world's carbon footprint. So why bother? Madam Speaker, the reality of the situation is we, as a low-lying island at the mercy of the seas, we're going to be affected long before the big polluters and the big contributors to global warming and climate change are. We need to be a part of the solution. We need to partner with global entities and seek support from organizations like the UNEP, UNFCCC, UNDP, and parliamentary-focused organizations like Climate Parliament and Globe International. Madam Speaker, societies unwilling or unable to adapt to meet the challenges of sustainable development will be left behind and perhaps face costly consequences. Those willing to meet the challenge head on can rely on support and different tried and tested approaches to try to achieve desirable outcomes. Madam Speaker, sustainable energy should be defined as the production and use of energy without compromising the abilities of future generations to meet their energy needs. Put simply, the diesel fuel produced for powering combustion engines is a finite resource. It may meet present needs, but not future ones. Therefore, it is unsustainable energy. On the other hand, solar-powered vehicles, which rely on sunlight, perpetual source of energy, is a form of sustainable energy because it can meet present and future needs. And that's why I also referenced, Madam Speaker, that as a country, our goal should be at least 20% electric or hybrid vehicles by 2020. Madam Speaker, I want to touch on the National Energy Plan. And I think you of all people, Madam Speaker, are intimately knowledgeable about the draft that has been circulated for quite some time. And Madam Speaker, with your indulgence, I'll read from the official Hansard report of Friday, 15th March, 2013. Thank you, Madam Speaker. The sustainable economic development of these islands is tied to the availability and affordability of energy resources. The National Energy Policy Committee members, both from the private and public sectors, have been working arduously to develop a policy that will be a guideline for the future decisions these islands take in relation to energy. The following topics were considered in the development of the NEP. 1, construction, buildings, and land use. 2, electricity, renewable energy, water, and wastewater. 3, petroleum products and transportation. And 4, public education. Madam Speaker, I'm going to skip a few lines and just read again from the vision of the NEP as you stated it. The vision of the Cayman Islands energy sector to 2032 is to be an efficient, diversified energy sector supported by informed public behavior within the Cayman Islands, which provides secure, reliable, and affordable energy in an environmentally sustainable manner. You went on to say that the goals for the NEP, these state that the Cayman Islands wants to achieve for its energy sector decreased costs of energy as a priority, increased environmental sustainability, increased energy security, and contribute to economic development of the energy industry. Through the NEP, the Cayman Islands' aim is achieving the following 4 goals, and you repeated them, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I quoted that to say that 3 years later, all these things are still relevant. And if they were a priority in 2013, I don't know what they are now, 3 years later. Madam Speaker, I also want to table, with your indulgence, what some of our regional peers are doing. This draft bill was proposed in Barbados on Tuesday, the 10th of December, 2013. It was a bill entitled An Act to Revise the Law Relating to the Supply and Use of Electricity to promote the generation of electricity from renewable energy, to enhance the security and reliability of the supply of electricity, and to provide for related matters. This was the Barbados Parliament, Madam Speaker, and I'll table it with your...
So ordered.
Madam Speaker, you haven't been intimately involved in that process. It's an example of another long list of other such exercises that ended up in a pretty document on a shelf and lost for some 3 years. I give credit to the minister and the government for now bringing it back to light. But 3 years is a long time, Madam Speaker, especially, like I said, when it was deemed a priority as far back as 2011. My goal is to make it less expensive for the average person to live in Cayman by looking at utilities, etc., and trying to get the best deal for this country. I campaigned on a platform of independent leaders who put country first. And I believe I've tried to carry this out throughout my career. That's why, Madam Speaker, over a year ago, I felt so passionate about this topic in this area that I held my own energy summit when some of my cries were going on deaf ears. Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the people that showed up. There weren't that many, but I see a few faces, including the first elected from West Bay, the second elected from West Bay, the, the third elected from West Bay, and the
Order.
member from East End. Madam Speaker, when I saw the response to that energy summit, both before, during, and after, it made me realize that this is something that people want. And Madam Speaker, I understand the reluctance by the utility company. It's no different from what's happening the world over, both in the US and Europe. There's actually a name for the way solar is cutting into the utility business model. It's called the utility death spiral. And don't quote me on that. That is something that I've read through my attendance at the various conference. Yeah, don't say this is originated by Winston Connolly. The more customers that go solar, the more revenues the utilities lose. So then they have to raise the price to make it up. So, Madam Speaker, there is an argument that says that those that don't go into renewable energy end up paying more disproportionately than they did when others were on the grid. But Madam Speaker, in this phenomenon, utilities may need to consider a new business model. Instead of being power companies, they could become electric grid companies, where they don't actually bring electricity in, they just shuffle it around between one house and another, one business and another. Utilities will either change to match technology, or like when the cell phone came and the landlines existed, they will get left out. The price of solar has declined dramatically, Madam Speaker. Solar now poses what you may call a moral threat to mainline power utilities that have dominated energy distribution for over a century. Madam Speaker, there are various arguments. But this comes down to two things: the voice of the people and political will. Madam Speaker, investor-owned utilities are worried about the popularity of renewable energy. They have shares in utility companies. And I dare say a number of us in this House will probably have shares in utility company. I hear a lot of no's, but if I ask people to put up their hands if they do, I'm sure I'd see more yeses than no's, but I won't do that, Madam Speaker. But I'll just point out that we can't let that cloud our judgment if we're in that position. Because as legislators, we're tasked not to look out for ourselves. We're tasked to look out for the masses. Madam Speaker, we're asked constantly in this House, and this I know for a fact. I might know who owns shares, but I know that we are asked to help customers on a monthly basis pay their electricity bills. Politicians purchase vouchers, energy vouchers, and they offset residents electricity bills, and I don't either, but I know that people are bombarded with these. Madam Speaker, to do that month on month is actually just putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. We need an energy plan in place that helps these people in a holistic manner. And one way that we can do that is solar. Be it rooftop solar or solar farms. Because if we cut down one of their biggest expenses, they're going to have money left over at the end of the month. We're going to work ourselves out of what a lot of people call charity. Madam Speaker, I've heard various arguments by the utility company and the ERA including widespread adoption of distributed solar will cause grid instability. There needs to be a huge investment in grid infrastructure upgrades to accommodate the increase in distributed solar, forcing them to pass on the increased cost on non-solar customers. Right now, what we're hearing is that with the price of oil this low and the prices coming down, it's actually more expensive to go solar than it is to use diesel. Madam Speaker, we can't live in the here and now. We have to have a plan to wean ourselves off of fossil fuel dependency. Every single member in this House was elected to stand up for the people and the country. And if after 4 years in here, we go out and say, well, we didn't do anything because we didn't feel the need, people should not vote us back in, because we have to have vision and we have to have leadership. Madam Speaker, utilities, I would dare say, and ask anyone to argue otherwise, don't have the customer's best interest in mind when making some of the infrastructure and other decisions. Because if you have a monopoly, a regulated monopoly business model, you have to answer to your shareholders, first and foremost. You don't want anything that reduces the demand for the electricity that you sell. Any plant improvements get passed on, and you're guaranteed a rate of return. So, Madam Speaker, if someone tells you that an investor-owned utility is looking out for the best interests of your people, and you buy it, you should go and do another job and not be a politician. Madam Speaker, this should be about choice. We do the feed-in tariff in Cayman, and I think we should also look at net energy metering. But Madam Speaker, again, I'm not the expert, and I'm happy to, well, up to today, I'm still a part of that National Energy Policy Committee, and I've been told otherwise. And I will gladly participate in that exercise, Madam Speaker, because again, you need all views, you need all viewpoints, and this is going to be about compromise, but it should still be about choice, and it should be about planning for the future. Madam Speaker, the lobbyists are from both ends, and everyone has vested interest, obviously. But sometimes we need to try to emulate Solomon and argue to split the baby in half and see what comes out the other end. Madam Speaker, I'll give Bible lessons after this session, Madam Speaker. But right now I'll concentrate on energy. Madam Speaker, it's time for Utility 2.0. It's time for the utility companies to change their business model and adapt. They need to take a bold and necessary step towards a business model that mirrors the changes in the scale and technology of electricity. The old model will prove inadequate if it remains indifferent to the flow of energy, money out of the local community. Because, Madam Speaker, that's also what we're talking about. Money back into the pockets of our people. Affordable existences. And when our people are sometimes balancing their mortgage versus their electricity bill, we know that it's too high. Energy democracy is the step after this one that we need to take. It's daunting to many because it's not what we know. But for sustainable energy, for future generations, we need to convert to a low carbon environment. And we need to work with the local energy company to transition. CUC. Higher fixed fees, penalizing customers for using renewable energy isn't the way to go, Madam Speaker. There has to be a balance. I don't agree that there should not be a cost, but it shouldn't be the cost set by the monopoly. And the regulator shouldn't be only guided by the monopoly. We need to take in a lot more inputs before we come up with some of these costs. Allowing customers to have a choice in managing their energy costs will strengthen the Caymanian economy, create jobs, and diversify the country's energy portfolio. And Madam Speaker, that is what I believe you were saying in your contribution back in 2013. Madam Speaker, the goals have to be securing a reliable and affordable energy source or sources. It has to be reducing the country's carbon footprint. We have to have energy security and not be just reliant on outside fossil fuel, especially in a country that has an abundance, an overabundance of sunshine. And we found that people are now using geothermal. They're talking about saltwater air conditioning, SWAC. These are things that we need to look at, including biogas and biomass and all the other types of things, because we need to find out what fits the Cayman Islands. We know that cooling is the largest draw on in our electricity bill. How do we solve cooling is one of the important answers or questions that we need to answer. Because if we reduce the cost of that, then we know that we reduce the energy bill and that people will have more money to circulate into the economy and they'll be less reliant on social services and politicians. And Madam Speaker, we also have to encourage and promote energy conservation and efficiency throughout the public and private sector. Madam Speaker, these are the things that I'm coming up with out of a hat. I just based a lot of this on what was there before. That's what I would also like to applaud the Minister of Planning and the wider government for doing, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater and actually starting from the draft that was already there before. Because we can't wait another 4 years doing another study and doing all these things to push off the inevitable. We need to take this, dust it off, and in quick order come up with a national energy plan that we know we're going to have to tweak as we go along, as costs come down, as sources become available, as we kind of figure out what works for the Cayman Islands. In that way, Madam Speaker, the opportunities and the benefits, and I'm quoting from the summary of the National Energy Plan draft, is that we will reduce the Cayman Islands' dependence on imported fossil fuels. We'll keep money in the local economy. We'll smooth out the volatility caused by the international price of oil. We'll create a vibrant new sector of the economy, and we'll reduce the Cayman Islands' carbon footprint. Again, these aren't words from me. These are things that have gone through a process and come out the other end. And Madam Speaker, we talk about wanting our people to have livable wages and jobs that pay a livable wage. Renewable energy is labor intensive, and it's expected to create jobs and additional income at a rate that potentially outweighs losses in existing fossil fuel energy facilities. Again, I quote that from the summary. Operations and maintenance of renewable energy plants creates green jobs as well as a demand for products, services, and jobs in other sectors. Madam Speaker, there's part of our employment woes solved. And we'll have a diversified economy if we start looking for other sources of employment. Madam Speaker, some people say, how is government going to recover if we lose fossil fuel? We can still charge electricity, Madam Speaker, but duties, etc. The 3 cents that's quoted in CUC's, or this article about CUC. And it's an easy recovery, Madam Speaker, because the cost of energy of renewable energy is going to start out a lot lower than the cost of fuel in the long run. We can still tax the production of energy, and those amounts that our people pay will still be less. So government doesn't have to lose money in this regard. And I'm sure that the same calculations that have been done by more informed people than me will be presented and reviewed by the National Energy Policy Committee. So I won't go into that. I'll let that process work it out, but put it in writing and hope that very soon that'll be tabled in this honorable House. Madam Speaker, renewable energy also can provide valuable sources of funding for various government buildings, facilities, and even the airport, Madam Speaker. We want jet bridges, build solar farms. Not only could some of that totally reduce the cost, the operating cost now in the newly expanded airport. Over time, it could pay for all the improvements that we need and then some. And then, Madam Speaker, after whatever public-private partnership that we have, we would hope that that reverts to the government or the airports authority, and they can get revenue and offset their costs going forward. Madam Speaker, it's about opportunities and seizing these opportunities. It's about being proactive and visionary. It's about balance. We don't want to put CUC out of business. We don't want them to affect their shareholders negatively, but they also have to meet in the middle. And like many other utilities worldwide, they have to adapt. Madam Speaker, this is about energy revolution. This is about the people speaking and wanting change, wanting lower prices, wanting to be more environmentally conscious, wanting to do their part. We, elected by the people, for the people, need to listen and, most importantly, act. Madam Speaker, we haven't reached this stage yet, but if the world is any illustration, people are now taking to the streets. Just the other day in Nevada, within 3 days, 55,000 petitions were signed when the government imposed fees on solar. 55,000 was the magic number to get a petition, get a referendum on those fees. People took to the streets. They marched. Madam Speaker, when people have to worry about paying their electricity over their mortgage or worrying about how their kids are going to be fed, it's only a matter of time. Let's be proactive. Let's be leaders, and let's have the conversations to stem those types of actions, because they are unnecessary, Madam Speaker. We need to ask the Caymanian people what they want. Madam Speaker, customers are looking to be strategic with their limited resources. They're looking for cost savings. When you look at the analysis in both Europe and in the US, when people tell you that renewable energy is only for the rich, the fastest growing number of solar panel owners are the middle class and below. Madam Speaker, that goes to another point in my motion. We need to look after the poorest in our country, but we don't need to do it at $50 at a time. Let's come up with a holistic solution that is put on government housing and those below the poverty level. We like to boast that we're a rich country. We like to boast that we have one of the highest per capita incomes in the world. Let's stop having our people beg us on a monthly basis. Let's put the power, all puns intended, back in their hands, Madam Speaker. I said in my studies and on the 2 conferences that I recently attended, one a regional conference on sustainable development and renewable energy, and another an international one in London. The poorest countries are turning to solar because it is the great equalizer. It knows no sex, no age, no economic status or race. The statistics there were that in the US, most solar customers are fixed income customers, meaning the retirees and those that are on social services, social security. And they're looking for as little as $25 a month saving, because for some people, that means a lot. Madam Speaker, we can't sit and use our condition to dictate what others' conditions are, because until we live in their shoes and their situation, we can't take things like that for granted. And I know this is a regional profile and it doesn't reflect necessarily the Cayman Islands, but this is from the International Parliamentary Conference on Sustainability, Energy and Development that was held from the 14th to the 17th of March 2016 at the Houses of Parliament in the UK, Madam Speaker, that the 3rd elected member from West Bay and I attended. Madam Speaker, they grouped the Caribbean and Latin America together, and they said 28.8 million people live on less than $1.90 a day. 37 million are undernourished. 5.3% live on degraded land. And there's been a population increase from 611 million to 711 million between 2013 to 2030. Madam Speaker, I use these, and they're a little irrelevant for Cayman, right? But these are the people now, the ones living on $1.90 a day, that are accessing things like solar and other renewable energy. They're doing it with help from the industrialized countries, help with financing from the UNDP and other entities, and the Caribbean Development Bank. Madam Speaker, we have opportunities in Cayman to help our people. And in this role, that's what we should do. CUC needs to plan around distributed resources better. And to be balanced, Madam Speaker, I understand CUC's position. Like I said, there are anecdotal and real evidence around the world showing that utilities are struggling with the question of how to appropriately compensate for distributed solar. The fact is, though, as long as they operate under the current business model, which is pretty much worldwide, of the regulated monopolies, solar will hurt them. What is needed is that deeper rethinking of the utility model, particularly the investor-owned model. Madam Speaker, we need to form strategic partnerships. But in this House, in this role, we need to ensure that the public is protected and that rates are fair. The government has to be strategic and proactive with energy. In the US and Europe, solar customers are allowed to trade the power that their panels generate during the day for power they need during the night. That reduces the amount they pay to the utility and the amount they contribute to maintaining the grid, even though they still use it. The truth is, Madam Speaker, solar puts less stress on the grid. It pulls less power through the system, and excess power from a home goes to the closest house that needs power, and not through the whole system. Because when you have a central system, Madam Speaker, that then distributes energy all over the island, that's where the breaks and the other outages happen more frequently. The question for all sides to resolve in this tripartite arrangement is how much? How much is reasonable? Madam Speaker, I promised the Minister of Planning I wouldn't be too long. Can you give me the time that I've gone so far, Madam Speaker?
You have 1 hour and 3 minutes remaining.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. We need to turn to the ERA, the Electricity Regulatory Authority. And we need to look at the mandate that they have, the input that they have, and we need to again ensure fairness Madam Speaker, we just heard that there's another 2 megawatts added to the core program. But we also heard that the purchase cost for solar now is going down. Madam Speaker, that will act as a disincentive for people to sign up for solar, no matter what CUC says. And us as a government and the regulator needs to become more cognizant and ensure fairness. Madam Speaker, the core program was designed to encourage renewable energy, in particular solar. We have less than 1% renewable energy adoption at this stage. Can we, hand on heart, say that this was the intent, that we wanted to incentivize people to do 1%? Madam Speaker, we as a government need to do more. When I was attending some of these conferences, the two that I attended, I was almost embarrassed, Madam Speaker, when the other countries started talking about their renewable energy plans and what they had achieved so far. When I got up and said 1%, I was instantly embarrassed. Because here we are in the region touting ourselves as first world in the Caribbean, the jewel of the Caribbean. And every single country that spoke had multiple times what we had. And in fact, some of them are 2 years away from going 100% renewable. And Madam Speaker, to be fair, I know that some of them don't have a choice. But still, even with a choice, the cost of electricity, the long-term future reliance on fossil fuel, all these things we have to take in consideration when we're developing this plan. Madam Speaker, I believe that Barbados bill does a lot to answer and balance that. And it was one of the examples that they used in the regional conference that we attended. And the feedback was that it strove to achieve balance. And again, go back to that word, balance, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have access through the CPA to various international bodies, NGOs, financing institutions, policy assistance. We just have to ask for it. While I was waiting in the break today, Madam Speaker, Jamaica just announced that it's going after renewable sources of energy in a huge way. They're tapping in to the US for financing, policy, advice. They want to be the preeminent island in the region and a gas hub for the Caribbean. LNG. Madam Speaker, St. Kitts is trying to become carbon free and using geothermal to achieve this. We heard this in both the conferences that we attended. Madam Speaker, the time to do something about this is now. Not in the next administration, but right now, so that we can present something to the people that is palatable, that is something that they can own in vis-a-vis national energy plan. It affects their livelihoods, it creates jobs, it creates opportunities. Madam Speaker, again, just for a little historical journey, August 5th, 2011, the Cayman Compass. An energy policy for the Cayman Islands being drafted by the Ministry of District Administration, Planning, Agriculture, and Housing, along with the newly appointed National Energy Policy Committee, should be ready to be tabled before Cabinet in February 2012. Madam Speaker, when you couple this with your presentation in 2013 to this Honorable House and the telegraphing of the importance again in 2011 and probably before that, the time is now. Our people are looking to us to make those decisions, to have those conversations that they can't have with CUC, and to work out what our policy is and our plan. Madam Speaker, we have various renewable energy companies in the Cayman Islands. And we need to bring them to the table. We need to have all hands on deck. So I've been assured by the Minister of Planning that that's his recommendation as well. Wide discourse, views from all aspects, and then let the Energy Policy Committee take that and put that into a report. So I had mentioned making one professional body the voice of solar. And in my conversations with the minister, I've pulled that back a bit. And I do agree that we need everybody at the table having a voice. Why I had put CREA on that pedestal was that they've been the loudest proponents, so they were the counterbalance. But I agree that there are more people involved, different inputs that are needed. But I would again suggest that, like in Barbados, that there is a recognized round table of sorts that government goes to in times of discussion and advancing of the plan. So I'll stop short of saying that they should be the voice, but they definitely need to be at the table. Absolutely. So I'm a reasonable man, Madam Speaker. Compromise is my middle name. But at the same time, Madam Speaker, there's a time for compromise and there's a time for action. And all 17 of us voting members in this House The people have spoken. It is that time. I've never had such a response in my 3 years as to when I did the Energy Summit and when I did this energy motion and the video accompanying it. Madam Speaker, that means people are interested. And social media is one of these things. You get instant feedback. People will either tell you something positive or they'll tell you something negative. There's no filter. Madam Speaker, for those of us in this House that would ignore social media, you do so at your peril. Because people are watching. People that won't come out to rallies, people that won't come out to meetings, but they'll interact in a lot of ways anonymously. Yeah, maybe I'm giving away too many secrets for the next campaign, Madam Speaker, but I say it to say that it's the chosen medium of our people, especially our young people. And make no bones about it, Madam Speaker. That's the generation that's looking at us now. And I dare say that this will be one of the priority areas in the next campaign. What have you done for me lately? Are you looking out for my future and my children's future? Madam Speaker, some people may say that I'm an idiot for trying to take on this task. But I take my job seriously, Madam Speaker. And it's not about me. I have the luxury and that I can afford my electricity bill. I don't have to worry about whether to pay my mortgage or my electricity bill at the end of the month or feed my kids. But this role has afforded me that voice to speak for the people, in particular the people for Georgetown. And it's something that I don't take lightly. And even when it's something that could detriment me personally and my future, social acceptance or otherwise, it's something that needs to be done because it's time. And I think that others that might try to ignore this and stay on the fence, I just need to remind you that people are watching. Madam Speaker, I'll leave the rest in my wrap-up, and I'll let the other members speak. Thank you.
The House will now take a break and resume at 9 o'clock.